Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
And also
Very
good evening
early,
to anybody, wherever you are, everybody. Hey, Diane.
a very early morning here on the West Coast.
Oh, right. I'm East. Yeah, I'm having my coffee a
Yeah,
little later in the day. So a
and
very good
I'm
morning to you, Diane.
just starting to make my coffee.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Hendrix here. Good morning, Hendrik.
Hello, hello.
Could someone put the link to the agenda in the chat?
Absolutely. Give me a second.
I will. Thank you. I'm always looking for it.
And I will
There it is.
I will also throw the link to the last week as well. The summary's up now as well, so I'll throw that up too.
Here we go. This is for this week. Yes. So here's the link for this week. Oh, Jessica was faster than me. Thank you.
Way ahead of you.
Always.
Nah, just kidding.
Good, good, good. So let's share the link with all the people and remind them that the meeting starts. Okay, a lot of people already here. So let's start with the introduction and welcome to the Hiero TSC call. Like any call we are doing as part of the Hiero project, this is an open call, which means everybody is invited to join this call, bring in topics, bring in questions, discuss with us, and so on. If you are new to Hiero, we do several of those public calls, not only the TSC calls, and we have a public calendar that is linked on our website, in GitHub, in the agendas of the, or in the minutes and agendas of the meetings. And there you can find all the different meetings that we do. As you can see, even today, there's another meeting later, the Hiero Solo Community Call, or we had the Hiero Community Management Call, like directly before this call. This is where I'm coming from. Later this week, we have the office hours of the Python SDK, and we have the Hiero monthly maintainers community call tomorrow. And if you miss a call, that's not a problem, because if you go back in time, like to last week, and click on the TSC, you will see that you can get a recording of the meeting, and you can get even AI generated minutes of that meeting. So if you miss a call, you can always check what happened in that call. And since all of that happens in the public and anybody can join all those meetings, we need some guide rules here, which is the code of conduct of the Linux Foundation and the antitrust policy of the Linux Foundation. No big rules, so if you join us and be friendly to everybody else, you're more than welcome, and feel free to contribute to our meetings, ask questions, bring in concerns, or start new discussions. That's absolutely great. And with that, let's come to the agenda of today. And as always, I start with a short overview of what happened last week in the TSC call. And last week in the TSC call, I think we had three main topics. One topic we have on our agenda this week again, which is the TSS ceremony HIP, where we had some discussions last week about. Then we talked about the mentorship program and the final submissions we did for the mentorship program. And the third topic we had was, actually, I missed it. What was it? It was three. I looked it up some minutes ago. Oh yeah, Hiero Hackers and the analytics report. So we showed the Hiero Hackers org that we now have set it up as a very lightweight org for contributions to hackathons and so on that happen within the scope of Hiero. Okay, and yeah, that was the last call. So before we go into the topics of today, as always, the question is if anybody has any updates on interesting things happened within Hyrule, any updates of upcoming events, any topics you would like to share with the Hyrule audience in general with the community. So if yes, yeah, just speak or raise your hand here in Zoom. Anybody wants to share anything? Yes, Jessica.
Hey, thank you, Hendrik. You have it there in the agenda, the reminder about Rare Evo
Yeah,
2026. So if anybody is interested in participating, uh, giving a workshop, please contact me and I can work with you on the details. We invite anybody of the maintainers to do a presentation, so just let me know.
cool. Thank you, Jessica. And Jessica, do you know where that should be published to? We have
Uh,
something, we have
sorry.
something new I can show. So when you go to the Hyrule website and go to the blog, you will see that we now have several posts which are called like Hyrule links of the week. And here we try to highlight some things that are happened within Hyrule. And I would say things like that, like, hey, there's an event happening that can be very good added to the Hyrule links of the week so that
Uh-huh.
people who do not, like visit the TSC, but read our blog, which I hope will become more and more within the Hyrule community, those people then can be informed about it too.
Yeah, for sure. Let me talk to Angie. I believe she writes those links
Yeah,
of the week.
exactly. And she's here in the meeting. She's here in
Oh,
the call. It's Angelina Cepaguni. So if you have anything
Hi.
you would like to share with the Hyrule community, best is to ping Angelina, and she will try to put it on the next Hyrule Links of the week that hopefully will be more or less now released every week, which is great. Okay, any other news or updates somebody would like to share? Okay, cool. Which brings us, oh yeah, I always do the reminder regarding our public calls at the beginning. We have the Hyrule Discord channel too. Oh, Angelina, yes.
Just before we move forward, I just wanted to let everybody here know If you haven't seen it already, we did add a new TSC tab to the website. This is where we will be keeping all of our TSC information. Plus, it will make it easier for us website maintainers to keep track of that, especially when the TSC changes. Just wanted to mention that in case anybody hadn't seen it, but that was it.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we're growing and growing the Wings of the Week. I like that. So the next topic, and I do not see him here in this call, is something I have not added, but I think David Boswell or Jessica have. Oh, and I see David is here too.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Hey, everyone.
I have not seen you. I don't know why. So yeah, we have a topic here that David brought up, and the first thing is from you. I actually worked on something that I just added here, which fits a little bit into that topic, where we can have a look at later. But I think you have something you want to share with us. Should I stop sharing and you can share, or how do you want
Either
to
way,
do it?
or if you just click on that link and you could pull it up if you're sharing already. So thanks for putting this on the agenda. And for anybody I haven't met, my name is David. I work with Jessica at the Linux Foundation, and we're both here to support projects. And so I'm happy to join and help out. And I thought this might be helpful. We had not documented this in the past, and I know that Hiero has a lot of sub-projects. So this has come up recently as something that we wanted to provide a little bit more guidance on and clarity on. Hiero has a lot more sub-project activity than most of the other projects at LFDT, so we just hadn't had a need to document this in the past. But I know this is coming up a number of times here, for the sub-projects you're creating. So we just wanted to provide some guidance on recommendations and policies around sub-project naming. And I won't read through this whole thing, but I'll just kind of go through some of the highlights. I wanted to point this out and to see if there's anything on here that's maybe confusing or needed to be, clarified so that we could update that and then we can share it more widely with other projects. But basically, the intent here is to provide guidelines from a marketing perspective and a legal perspective so that when you create a sub-project name, it gets the trademark protection that we all want so that there aren't conflicts and so that you aren't needing to being put in a position where you're needing to change the name later. So this goes through and again, just to highlight some of the points, I think the main thing that I want to highlight is that Hiero is trademarked, and so that our recommendation and our policy around sub-project naming is to use that Hiero name as a prefix for a sub-project name. So you can see here, I give some examples here. And this came up recently. We were talking DSR with the Heka sub-project. So if you use Hiero as a sub-project in the sub-project name, so like Hiero Heka, then that name then gets that trademark protection. Which, again, I think it's something we all want. Again, you want to be in a situation where if somebody disputes the name, we can say, no, wait, look here, we actually do have, this is part of a trademark. We have, we can point to that and hopefully resolve any disputes that way. And I think this is pretty much what projects are doing anyway, kind of informally. I don't think this is a new policy necessarily. It's just more of we're documenting something that we're seeing people already doing. And I think this is just, pointing out that this is the guidelines now that we've documented it. Another example I put here on the document from a different project, this is not specific to Hiero. You could see other projects doing it too. I think we see Fabric doing this. So they, for example, have a number of labs, and one example would be the Hyperledger Fabric Smart Client. One note on usage, you only really need to use that full name the first time you use it. So maybe on the GitHub repo or in a blog post or whatever, you can reference the full name, like to keep using Hiero Heka as example, Hiero Heka, the first use, but then you can use the short version, just Heka, like later in the whatever document or page that you're using. And again, that's pretty much it. I would, a couple other things to point here. There's only so much protection you can get with the trademark by using prefix. I put a couple examples here. If you wanted your project to be Hiero Lightsaber,
Yes.
that's probably not going to work. Even if you could say, "Hey, we have Hiero is trademarks." Well, but yeah, sure, but that protection only goes so far. So you still need to pick things that aren't obvious conflicts, right? So, I would say when picking a sub project, still do some due diligence. You can kind of like Google around to see, hey, is this a thing that, has a lot of, other uses in the similar space, and is this something that, maybe is not a good sub name or not, so it's still something to be aware of. And if you ever have any questions, come to some of the staff members, me or Jessica, and we can help give some advice. But just to say that using Hiero in a sub-project name gives you some protection, but there's still limits. And that's more or less it. Again, you can read through the whole documentation, but I did just want to share that this is now something that is available on our wiki, so you can reference. Again, I don't think any of this is really new. It's something that has been kind of informally happening all along. I think this is really just documenting it again so people can reference it. But I did want to see if there's any questions or comments that people might have about this, so we can again update the documentation to make it more clear if it's anything that is not very clear yet.
Yeah, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, what is written here is totally clear. My question is more about with the space when that should be used. So to give you a sample, when I go to our org and go to our technical repositories where we have technical names, right?
Yeah.
We have some that do not follow that. Like, so let's take, for example, we can take this one, or where's solo? Here we go. So two examples where we, instead of using like technical descriptions like the Hiero SDK for Rust, we use product names like Heka Identity Platform or Solo, right?
Uh-huh.
And so now here in GitHub, for example, we're in a technical space. The document that you've shared, is that interested for or important for that space too, or is that only important when talking about, hey, we write a blog post, we write an article, do a presentation kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good point. And the document does go through that. I guess I skipped over some of that, but I think and some of this is maybe, again, a question with staff. If it's ever unclear, come talk to us. But I think there's definitely some places where that prefix is not needed. And again, this goes to what is considered a subproject or not. This is where maybe it could be helpful to maybe this is the part where we need some more clarity. So some things that might be technically considered a subproject, I think, I saw on your list you had like roadmap, for example. I don't think that in that sense needs to have the prefix.
Yeah.
That in my mind is different. Something like roadmap to me seems more like documentation. That seems different from something like Heka, where it's like, well, this is a piece of code that might get deployed somewhere. So you can see in our documentation, it references that. Is this something that's going to get, when the prefix is required, right? Like, is this something that could be deployed or not? To me, you don't deploy your roadmap documentation. That's just a place where you're coming to, document some things, right? So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I think the high level answer is you don't necessarily need everything to officially be named as a sub project. Some things are just like working directories or working repos or something, for example, right? So
yeah, sure. Yeah. I'm not talking about that. My question is more like, do I need to change this one to Hiero Heka Identity Platform?
I see.
As an example. That is more my question. Sure. Do I need to now change? I mean, I assume we don't talk about the technical like repo name, but for example, something like this. Does this need to be changed, or are we fine with how we do it?
So I think on a page, the first use of it should be, so in this case, if we could change the title to be Hiero Heka Identity Platform, that would be ideal. And then for the repo name, I think maybe we could have a situation where, for the ones that already exist, we could talk, we don't want to create disruptions. I think it also, again, should ideally have the prefix in it. Again, you want that protection. But again, that might be an issue going forward when you're creating new repos. Just keep that in mind. For the existing ones, again, we don't want to create disruption if it's going to cause an enormous amount of disruption to put Hiero Heka in the name of the repo. We can talk about that, but ideally it would. Yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
But yeah, not every usage, so again, just the first usage. So not everywhere on the page where it says Heka, it's really just that first time.
Okay. Any other questions
Yeah,
from
I'll go
somebody
ahead
on that
and
topic?
I'll go ahead and help with the readmes for the repos that need to be changed. Yeah, definitely changing the repo name will create some.
Yeah,
I wish it would be easier just to rename the repo, but yeah, it will create a little bit
yeah.
of a problem. But at least I'm gonna change the readmes for those repos in question. Thank you so
And
much,
that
David,
already
for the.
makes me happy, Like I was afraid, oh, do we now need to change the report? Okay. That is important news. Yeah, yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, but it's definitely probably something that we want to keep in mind for the template of the project proposals. We can probably specify it there so that people don't forget it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anecdotally, I mean, you're more familiar with the repos than me, but I mean, when I was flipping through, it seems like most repos do start with Hiero, right? I mean, I feel
Yes.
Yeah.
generally speaking.
I would say the ones that do not have like product names, like like Hika or Solo. The other ones start with Hyro, and the ones that have those names are normally not start with Hyro because I mean they are in the Hyro Ledger org already.
Mhm.
That is a little bit the similar topic that I have added to it. If I can open where is it? Oh, the other link, because what we did is we had a look on, and it's a pull request, it's still not much, on our deployment. Like, what artifacts do we deploy to any repositories like Cargo, PyPy, Maven Central, and so on? And here we have, like similar no, I mean similar points that was not related to you, David, that I would like to ask you about it. This is, I assume, like more Hiero internally, but again, we have some different and variations of how we use the Hiero namespace here, which is a question I would like to bring to the TSC if we want to invest into that to create names and namespaces as similar as possible, or if we are fine with, for example, the HyroDid SDK doing their own thing in NPM and not being under the Hyro Ledger namespace, as an example. That is a topic regarding naming and where to use Hyro and where not. I brought into it into this topic where I would like to know from the people here in the call, especially TSC, if you think that is something we should to invest to get the namespaces of published artifacts as similar as possible and try to get everything under one namespace if possible, or if we say like, oh yeah, more, like openness is totally fine here. Michael.
Yeah, I guess I'm torn. I could see it going both ways, but I think that overall, the most important thing with the package names is that they're as short as possible, but for like branding, marketing, awareness, easy to install, and things like that. So I think that would kind of be a big thing is like, how can we bring it down as much as possible? I guess we couldn't get the at Hyro namespace, right? Somebody else took that one.
Yeah. That's why here we now have this Hiero ledger. The question is, like for one language, like in that case, JavaScript, TypeScript, do we want to have multiple namespaces like Hiero ledger and then Hiero did SDK and maybe something else? Or do we say, hey, let's try to get all those did things? We factored that it's something like Hiero ledger slash, I don't know, did dash crypto or whatever, to have like a real consistent naming set. I assume this will even help us to see what we have and what is within our space. There are some things like Rust and Python who do not have namespaces at all, where we only have like a generic name of an artifact being deployed. There we could say like, oh yeah, it need to start with Hiero dash and then something else that the rule is here. And under Maven, we need to own the domain. So here it must be org.hiero. So you see, we do not get it the same anyway over all languages. Here we have org.hiero. Here we have Hiero ledger and so on. The question is, should we try to get it by language as consistent as possible? Michael.
Yeah, to follow up on that, because I realized my last thought wasn't really concise or clear. I'd maybe argue for they should all just start with Hiero dash, and that makes analytics simple enough where you can look up all the packages that start with Hiero dash, or Hiero dash ledger, whatever. But then I think the naming of the package itself, like Hiero, if you did Hiero dash ledger dash did SDK, it's a lot more words. But if you could just start with Hiero and then the rest can be up to the package itself. That way you can keep it as short as possible character wise, and then you still have the flexibility of just looking up all the packages that start with Hiero if you want to figure out like how many npm downloads we got, or how many contributors, or what the activity is, and so forth. Just my
Yeah,
viewpoint.
I understand that the problem that I see is like for NPM, where you have, maybe Roger knows more about it, but as far as I understood it, this is a namespace, and that namespace is now owned by us. Looks like somebody created this namespace when Hiero did has been deployed. This namespace is now owned by us too. Somebody outside of Hiero could now create the Hiero-foo-bar namespace, and it's absolutely not related to us, and put something in. So if we say, for example, in NPM, as long as the namespace starts with Hiero dash, it's good enough. It could be that somebody uses Hiero dash whatever, and it's not really defined, is that now us or not from the outside. That is a little bit the concern I have here, and why I like to have, where possible, where namespaces or group IDs are supported, just have one for all the things coming from the Hiero ledger org.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because then if anybody can create it, you do run into supply chain risk and attacks and so forth from the security perspective.
Yeah, that's the point, right? So now somebody could now create Hiero did SDK2 or whatever, and yeah, or just Hiero minus did without SDK and deploy something, and that is what I would try to avoid here. Any other thoughts from anybody?
I found the supply chain attack to be compelling. It's a good argument.
Okay. Good. Then I will, at least for NPM, contact, yeah, Keys is today not here, contact Keys and try to get this one moved. And as said, the others, first of all, look good. And in Rust, PyPy, we cannot do it differently. And in Maven, we still have nothing deployed to Maven. directly after this meeting, I have a meeting with several people regarding the naval namespace and how to do that in the best way. So hopefully later this month, early next month, we have something under the org.hiero namespace then in Maven Central too. Good. So that's about naming. Any other thoughts on that, or can we move forward to hips? Okay, good. And I know there's a new hip for us today to present. I don't know, Mark, should we start? I assume you have a short update maybe on TSS ceremony, if this is still needed for us to vote on or not. And I heard you have a new hip for us. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. If you look at 1193, the fourth one down, that is the new hip. Oh, there you go. That's the hip I'd like to discuss today. On the ceremony hip, we have decided to make that informational hip. So there
Good.
is no need to vote on it. It is Hedera centric, although the assets generated from the ceremony can be used across Tyro. So that's why we wanted to make you aware. But there's no direct change to consensus node source code or anything. So that is
Perfect.
informational. So we could remove that off the agenda. But yeah, I would love to discuss this hip with you all. Do you want to actually show the doc or?
Uh, like, what is it? 1193. I can go here and then.
I could.
Here we go.
I sent the link. Okay, there we go. Oh yeah, that's a lot nicer looking. Perfect. Thank you. So this is related, just as the TSS ceremony was related to, is this transition from record files to block streams. And this change involves a lot of different aspects. The cryptography, the delivery mechanism, and then the actual data format itself. And so within this large change, this hip is used to provide the end-to-end concepts and change descriptions for mirror node operators. This is a mirror node hip, by the way. And so it explains what's changing and why, but then it also explains what is required from the mirror node perspective. And so there's a few changes we go over in this hip. Aside from the why, we talk about how the mirror node will pick up the new cryptography credentials, what's called a ledger ID, and some keys associated with TSS. It also discusses what's required to connect to block nodes. So there's a special compliant version of mirror node software that is upcoming. And so they'll load that and they'll be able to connect to block nodes. And then it also talks about we'll have a bucket backup. So if streaming is not working, the mirror nodes will automatically converge to a separate AWS GCP bucket. And so we discuss that, and there's steps they need to verify their credentials and the permissions of those credentials to access those buckets. And then additionally, we go over the mechanics of how the system will cut over from record streams as the root of trust to block streams becoming the root of trust. So this is a very high level end-to-end HIP, but with specific changes applicable to mirror node operators so that they understand the change and all the pieces of the change, why we're making this change, the benefits to mirror node operators, and then most importantly, what they need to do to ensure continuous operation even through the cutover. So with that, I'll pause and yeah, any questions or follow-ups?
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, any questions from anybody on that tip?
Compared to other ones, this is pretty straightforward. So that's good.
Is there a timeline for when this is going to happen?
Yes, the end of Q2, Q3 is the range.
Okay. So I assume we will vote on ZHIP then next week from the TSC. Until then, you have time to have another read of it and ask questions. If you have any questions and don't know how to ping Mark directly, as an example, you can always ping me and I can forward it. We already did that sometime, worked great. So yeah, if you do not have any other yeah, sorry.
I just have a quick one.
Sure.
Is there a section in there about like cutover criteria when we have enough block nodes that are ready? I'm just scrolling through it really quickly
Yeah,
here.
no, we don't. Again, this is very high level system procedural focused. So we don't go over any of the actual details of the cutover itself. This is a mirror node HIP, so it's really just focused at
Okay.
mirror node operators.
And my assumption would be adding that would be very Hedera specific, right?
Yes.
Yeah, again, yeah.
That is, I mean, it makes sense to have those information. Maybe that is something we need to think about if like for HIPs like that, we have a specific section which we call like node operator specific informations, and then have, you know, like dates for Hedera or information that are specific for Hedera kind of thing in future. So that we can, you know, have a better split between this is super generic and here we have some information that today mostly for Hedera is specific but totally useful to share.
Yeah, that may be a good idea.
Good. Mike.
Sorry, just one question.
Yeah.
Mark, would you say that like going forward, using block streams would be the default implementation of Hedera? That's the one that you would recommend if somebody was, like I'm kind of thinking like in HashSphere, what I don't, maybe that's not an appropriate topic to discuss here, so please let me know if it isn't. But like, would you be setting up block nodes on HashSphere networks? Would any sort of new instances of the Hedera network, the recommendation would be to use block nodes?
Yes. Once block nodes are deployed, that will be the output of the network.
For all Hiero networks, minor said Hedera networks, just Hiero networks.
Oh,
yes, any
sorry.
Hiero network will be focused on blocks and block streams and block nodes.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I thought it would be the case, so just wanted to confirm.
Cool.
Well, that and pardon my naivety again. Does this mean that the mirror node subproject will be archived at some point?
No, there's something in between. So the idea is, oh, Richard, I think Richard can explain it better.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's basically three functions. One function, I guess there's four, but two of them are combined. So one function is ordering transactions in consensus order. The second function is executing those transactions and producing blocks. Those two functions all happen on a consensus node. Then there's a function which is distribution of those blocks. That's the block node. And then there's the function of indexing those blocks and making their data available through REST APIs and so forth. That's the mirror node. So
Okay.
that's the distinction between those roles.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So that was the last topic on our agenda. Do we have any other business? Anybody would like to bring in a topic, a question, anything? Okay. I think if not, we're good and can, stop 20 minutes early. Thank you all for being here and see you in any upcoming Hiero meetings then.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.